red button at the top right.
Oh, I can see it now.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our alcohol episode. It's the first time you've seen Josh in not a mangled state.
Or in running clothes.
We've switched. Thank you for your questions. I had 152 questions on
Did
you.
you?
152, I counted them, which shows some interest in some big societal shift in men and women wanting to bonk alcohol on the head. I think it's unique for us two because there's different reasons as to why we've stopped. I've obviously stopped because of my ulcerative colitis. Caveat that with I have drank twice this year. First at a first date and then second whilst I've been here at Nicky Beach because I had a minimum spend and I was like, they weren't accepting no food unfortunately. So I had a couple of tequilas and then that kind of cemented I don't want to drink anymore for me. And then Josh, which was, what was the catalyst for you? What was the light bulb moment?
So mine was probably just very standard for a majority of people out there who are following your channel or whatever, where I drank from teenage years through till 30, say. Very just habit at the weekends, having fun with your mates. Nothing too extreme, never really got too extreme. Comes with its negatives, obviously, which is like the standard. You're waking up some days thinking, fucking hell, don't remember doing this or that, or spending too much. So nothing different to probably what everyone's similar issues are. However, I think I was always keen on my fitness, which again a lot of you lot will be, and as I got into the running, it probably started highlighting that maybe in my mid-20s I didn't have much purpose outside of just going to work and then enjoying my weekends. And then as soon as I got into the running, which gave me a bit more purpose and something to want to do at the weekends other than just look forward to going out with your mates, then I started having to assess my relationship with the alcohol because I was still running extreme for some people, I guess, but like up to 70, 80, 100 a week. But I was still going out boozing 10 pints on a Friday or a Saturday.
But that was sandwiched, sorry to cut you off, that was sandwiched, your drinking has been sandwiched between not doing it for football.
Yeah, so in my younger days I played football fairly seriously, in and out of academies up until 17, 18. So up until that point, I was very much head on football, never really. And then when football went out the window, by the time I stopped taking it serious at like 21, 22 after Bromley, I then just been able to join in with your mates doing the weekend. And to be honest, I loved it. I don't look back at I won't demonise alcohol. Some people, which is important actually, have a great relationship with it or just not a problematic relationship with it. Mine probably was, I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was on the problematic stage in terms of I'd always be sort of fighting against wanting to go for a beer, even if it was like watching the Champions League games in the week. Deep down I'd be thinking, maybe I should just go and watch it at the pub.
But that segues you into this point where there's, as you said, there's not great advice out there for people with the grey area drinkers. Yeah,
so then when it come to deciding, I always had breaks. I had breaks pre-marathons or like typical dry Jan. Because I'd go excessive, I'd be looking forward to have a month off. And where I had enough hobbies outside of like the weekend drinking, that's a massive help. So for people that don't, they're a little bit lost without it. Whereas I, in them years, had like a girlfriend I was with or enjoyed my football and my sport, so I didn't not enjoy my months off, which always planted the seed of like I probably could do this. It wasn't like an awful thought.
Yeah, of course.
But when I did decide to stop, I said I'll just have a year off. I had a marathon booked for April, which I ended up missing for injury, but I just thought, do you want to
point it at you? There you go.
Like that. I just thought, right, I'll do a year off the drink, and I then did do a lot of work on podcast, books, because it was a habit that was going to be quite hard to break. I always link it to probably very similar to maybe like how, I don't know how hard it is to quit smoking for a smoker that smoked all them years, but you know, when that's your habit of every weekend, your mates, all your social life's interlinked with it. So I did a lot of work, but there's not great advice on, they say it's called grey area drinking or like middle lane drinkers, which is like you're not an alcoholic, you're just maybe drinking too much or want to assess your relationship with it. There's not loads of advice out there for them people.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of podcasts and listening to like how to quit alcohol, and it was always linking back to basically alcoholics or like.
Sure.
But it still works. If anything, you're just doing it in an even more serious way than what you probably need to be. But
I think it's similar to me now trying to quit the whole McDonald's binge eating that I go through.
yeah,
Maybe I need to deep dive in that, what you did with alcohol in the same sort of fashion.
because I did it like, and also, I'm sure you'll get. I've seen some of the questions like, "Oh, how have you done that?" Like it's easy.
Yeah.
I've probably been tempted or failed 20 times, if not more. Like, when I'd be like, I used to say, "Oh, I'm gonna have 2 months off." All the time, and then like
You'd
the
break.
second weekend out, I'd just be like, "Oh, but this is on, and I'm gonna break it." And you talk yourself around it. The only way it really works is when I seriously said, "I'm having a year off," and we'll go into some of the questions, like all the things we've had, but a lot's around peer pressure. I think in your earlier 20s, it's probably a bit bigger. You're not as mature, or you let that in a bit more. Later 20s, 30. It's different. A lot of people have maybe stopped already through having to buy houses, meeting the girlfriends. It's getting a bit more serious. Kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had it quite early in my 20s because of the bodybuilding. So I would quite frequently during Euros, World Cups, I'd rock up to the pub with the boys and sit there with a tuna salad and not being able to drink. So for me, I experienced what it was like in my early 20s to not be able to drink. And obviously your friendship group is a big indication of whether or not you're going to find that easy or not. And they were just, I mean, when you've got such a big task at hand, like I've got to win this bodybuilding show, the peer pressure element wasn't around for me. Whereas I think it's a lot harder when someone doesn't have an outlet like running, like a marathon, like bodybuilding.
Yeah, which gives people a bit of a, like, they just tend to stop a bit and think, "Oh, I get it."
Well,
also,
I back it up, don't I? If you said, "Why are you not drinking?" I said, "I've got a bodybuilding show," they're like, "Oh, sweet."
Yeah.
Whereas if you said, "Why aren't you drinking?" they're like, "Oh."
But that's important because a lot of people will be stopping through just like wanting to better them how
Absolutely.
they feel, especially like mentally.
Yeah.
There's so much we can go into on all of this, but the peer pressure one, you will get it, but definitely it helps saying, "Oh, I'm doing this for either a 6-month period," and just be serious with it. Like you can't not really be vulnerable with it. If you just say, "Oh, I'm not feeling good," you're not going to get much because that's a bit of a weird thing to then be like. So maybe if you're not as vulnerable at the beginning, you're going to get more peer pressure.
Yeah.
If you're just a little bit like, "Oh, it's been making me feel really shit," or like, "I'm stressed with money and I need to assess, where it's going," then it gets to a point when maybe you need to more question your mates if you're really getting peer pressure.
Absolutely. Well, it's so cliche, isn't it? It's the only drug. It's the only substance that when you say you're not doing it, it's heavily questioned. What are you on about? Why aren't you doing that?
And if you were really want to go into it, like, you could probably list a lot of the things that are nowhere near as worse that you could be doing that is way more frowned upon.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things with social events that was highlighted on those questions was the confidence. And you said yesterday, didn't you, when we was at the beach?
Yeah, so the confidence...
It's false.
It's a really good one, the confidence. I felt it firsthand. I've never really been shy at all, always pretty confident. I've never had that social thing at all. However, when I did stop, I did sort of notice, oh, maybe I'm not actually as confident as what I thought, or maybe just not as good at socialising as I thought, because all my socialing's done in your going out with your mates and you're having a drink. And even if you are a bit confident, after 4 or 5 pints, you don't even worry about it. So for people that do find social things a bit more problematic in terms of like how they feel if they're confident, that'll be a big one for you. But it shocked me massively because what happens is, one, you're looking after, well, if you do stop, you're looking after yourself a bit better, so you naturally feel a bit better. You're then a bit more consistent with what you're doing. So let's say most people will dive into training a bit better, whether it's just walking, you'll lose a bit of weight. Then that starts building actual confidence because one, you'll be feeling better, you'll most likely be looking better, people will notice that and tell you that, and two, then you're socialising without any mask of anything, which can be difficult, but you soon start realising like you're actually doing the work to make them things better. So then you build true confidence. Whereas alcohol's just sort of sold as, everyone thinks, but you get confident.
Yeah.
As soon as you take it away, you haven't really practiced any of it.
No.
So
you're replacing false confidence for
real
real
actual confidence. It takes a bit of time, but that will kick in.
It does.
And the same with like, when it comes to people saying about dates, again, maybe in your early 20s it is a bit harder because maybe the girls that you're meeting would be a bit like...
I did it. That first date.
Yeah, you'd know more than me.
was, when did I go out? In May. So I had Jan, Feb, March, April, May. I had 5 months no booze, and then I had this first date coming up, and I thought I could not drink, like I could, but I think given the circumstance and scenario of like maybe breaking the ice, I think it was better for me to have a little drink. It relaxed me a little bit, and then I could start to discuss I'm not drinking, and then the dates thereafter have been no drink at all, and she's been drinking, and there's been absolutely no issues at all.
Also, you've just got to think to yourself, you ain't got time. That's how I look at it. I don't worry about it, because I just think if you was to be judgmental in a way where that would put you off, I just don't really need you around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not going to work anyway, because I'm going to stick with not drinking.
Of course.
So it depends. If you're just trying to cut down and you're interested in it, then maybe the first things. Also, let's be real. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I hated it, or dates would be probably better. Like I would have, and it would probably progress a bit quicker and easier if you are. Like, you'd have maybe a bit more of a fun time.
Yeah.
Sort of probably contradicts my point a bit, but you know what I mean. It is an icebreaker for majority of people, and it tends to make everything a bit more sensible when you're not.
I think that's one of the biggest ones. It's meeting new people, like this idea of loneliness, this idea of not being able to meet new partners and new friends, and it's like, what avenue is there now for people that don't drink?
But online, I mean, I don't online date, but
no, of course.
So that is a bit of a stumbling block. If you've sort of got to be able to go up to people and chat, because otherwise you're not going to meet anyone.
Of course.
But for everyone else, or for people that do online date, then I guess that is the answer to that, because you don't have to be.
Running clubs as well. We've spoken before about running clubs. They've blown completely in
gyms. Just there's ways, isn't there? And also you can probably get a date a bit easier, which don't sound like a date. If you're chatting to someone and you just say like, oh right, do you want to go for a coffee? Yeah. Like, our society just doesn't do that, which is so normal. Maybe when you get a bit older, but in other cultures, like it's well normal to just say like, do you want to meet up for a coffee or whatever. Whereas in England, it just seems to be. Well, what we were around was dates were nights out.
You bypass that first barrier and think they appreciate it more anyway.
Yeah, so maybe you could find that it's actually like making it a bit more casual is easier. Other than that, online dating, you don't need to be drinking, obviously. In terms of the actual date, you can already have mentioned it online.
Well, it's on Hinge,
so it's
isn't it?
easier. You can put it on Hinge if you want. I don't actually try and like connect myself to it too much, because that's like telling someone, oh, I don't drink, and they can judge that. I don't really think I'm any more boring or different without a beer, so I just tend not to mention it.
The too young to stop one was interesting. Quite a few people in their 20s saying, I feel like I'm too young to go down this particular route, which is understandable. I'd probably say if it's coming at an impact of not being able to live your life and socialise, then if there's no issue, then probably go through. I think it's important in those early 20s to experience and go out and see if you like it or not, because you might be second guessing it. You might do it and just actually say to yourself, oh, I don't really like this. Whereas I think that there's a lot of pressure now to do it. You're seeing what we're doing. It's like, oh, Tom or Josh or whoever, do I need to do that? Not necessarily.
Not at all. Also, like, you're never too young to stop if it's problematic for a start, because that's just going to increase and going to cause you way more problems down the line.
Yeah.
Like, for everyone I know that got into, obviously with alcohol, it leads into other things, whether you're taking drugs at the weekend or whatever. So if it's causing problems, I'm sure all my mates that have stopped would look back and think, fucking hell, if I could have stopped 5 years earlier, it would have been so much easier. Yeah. So if you're noticing signs like actual problematic signs, then too young to stop's out the equation.
Of course.
If you're too young to stop in terms of like bettering your health, then maybe you're not loving it anyway, and see if you can control it. I think quite quick if you're one of those that can just be like, I speak to people, you for example, I'll have a drink on my birthday, I'll have my summer holiday, and then at Christmas I like a beer. Yeah. There's not really much point quitting if you're like that.
I think it's important to do the both, because I spoke on Instagram about the other day that it's like not necessarily a case of having to go cold turkey straight away. It's introduce these new elements like running, like holistic practices, like meditation. I think you become so addicted to those that you then start to think, actually, that alcohol isn't serving me anymore. It's not allowing me to progress further in my running, in my gym, in my meditation. So I think that's probably the best route if you are on the fence about it, is don't go cold turkey. Unless, like we said, there's some sort of severe health issue. I shouldn't really drink because my colitis does flare. I notice it when I have a drink. If I have a glass of wine, it feels like I'm swallowing a razor blade. Like, it's seriously painful for me. Hence one of the biggest reasons why I've stopped as well.
So, that's a good point. I think it's just having something else, like whether you're into the gym, like anything, when you want to level up in that, alcohol at some point gets cut. So like most people that will go on a cut for 8 weeks will probably drop the alcohol.
Yeah.
So like when mine comes to races, when I was drinking, I was dropping the alcohol.
Yeah.
So definitely having some sort of hobby where, you know, it gives you a bit of determination or motivation in another way can easily help curb, you know, them sort of cravings at the weekend because you've got a purpose. Whereas when you're just living for each week and you're not very sort of structured in anything, especially when you're like problematic with any of that, too much time on your hands or not enough structure alone is a problem. Because for me, I like to be aware, like if I had a free night, I'd be thinking, oh, should I go for a beer tonight?
Yeah.
Wouldn't always, but it would be a bit jarring in my head. Whereas as soon as I had like, oh, I'm doing 4 days training and that, I just would be able to not really think about it.
Yeah.
So,
it's the dopamine that you speak about. A couple of questions on. I use alcohol as my instant relief, my dopamine.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you could probably experience.
I think they said that something like an alcoholic drink, the dopamine hits like 9 to 12 minutes or something like that, which is why you tend to, even when you're drunk, your brain doesn't just be like, oh, I'm drunk now, so I'm good. You're chasing the dopamine hit. So that's the reason behind when you are hammered and you're still drinking more, it's because the dopamine hit's just wearing off.
Yeah.
So, and that's that's a good point. So you are using, that is a dopamine situation, and also the whole time you're cheating your dopamine system like that, your natural dopamine is really low. So like one of the reasons I stopped is because I would struggle with mood, and mine wouldn't be like flickering moods. Mine would be like, I drank consistently, so I'd go through patches of 4 months of a bad mood, or low mood, let's say, and I wasn't really. I'm still training a lot, and honestly, at times it was like I'm either mad anxious or I'd be in a low mood for a long period of time, and it's probably just because you're cheating your dopamine with whatever you're putting in you, and then your natural dopamine's like shot. So that's like, and it's really mad because when you do stop, things like going for a fucking walk around the park. Suddenly was like more enjoyable than it would be.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's about now replacing it for those natural dopamine hits.
But not only that, your natural dopamine then levels out again.
Yeah.
So like as soon as it's sort of out your system, your natural dopamine's a bit higher. So your mood issues will sort of disappear.
Yeah.
Anxiety, when I say anxiety, I didn't suffer with anxiety in a way of like a day to day. Mine was drink related anxiety.
Yeah.
But it still makes you, if you're drinking 3 or 4 times a week, you're an anxious person.
And you drank.
And it just stops. It literally just disappears.
You did what, Thursday to Sunday most days, or Friday to Sunday?
That was where I sort of allowed myself, because I'd be still training hard.
Yeah.
I would like switch on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but by Thursday I would be thinking, it'd be nice if I could like go for a few pints. Saturday every week I'd probably have a full night out, so 10 pints, whatever. Like Sunday, then I'd always go and watch the football with either my partner when I was with her, or we'd go for a roast, and you know, it just creeps in. And then I'd have 5 or 6 on a Sunday, and if you've had that and you go and meet your mate after, you'd have 10 pints on a Sunday. And the worst thing is when like your tolerance gets quite good, where I'd go and have 8 pints on a Sunday and not really feel that drunk.
Function on a Monday.
But you'd still feel fucked, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you sleep shit.
Yeah.
It was like it's weird. It doesn't sound that casual now, but in it was. And people listening, it's not that extreme.
No.
Maybe it is to some people, but there'll be a lot of people like living the city life or whatever will be like, maybe 20 pints a week.
More drinking Tuesdays.
And then you look into the situation of like, so when I did a lot of the research on it, the research massively helped. This is a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't just have the power to stop because I'd failed at that a few times. It only changed when I did a lot of the podcasts. And I also read a book on it where just about like how alcohol actually affects you. So like what it's doing to you neurologically, explaining about the dopamine, explaining why it gives you the anxiety. So understanding a lot of that helped, and also reading that Atomic Habits book.
Yeah, James Clear
explains breaking a habit is the easiest way to break a habit is to make it unattractive. Yeah. Which fell quite a lot into what I was reading about the alcohol, because some of it was like the stats or the facts on it through the podcast or whatever was like, fucking hell, that's bad.
Yeah.
So once I started like painting that picture and doing more research, and I was getting the picture of alcohol a little less attractive, it massively helped when I then was carrying on stopping because I was thinking, I'm not even sure I'm looking at that as like I'm missing it anymore. It was explaining about the sleep, like if you have basically 1 or 2 alcoholic drinks, you won't hit REM sleep that night.
Yeah, of course.
Now if you're drinking 4 nights a week, if you're not getting no REM sleep, which is like where your body's mainly is that restoring itself,
restoration,
then you're basically nowhere near living like your optimal level. And when I say optimal, I'm not saying like I'm talking just going to work just and functioning like. And you can probably, that's the thing I can feel now. I wake up and menial tasks that used to be a bit like, you know, when your mum says like, come round and do this for me, I'd think, oh, for fuck's sake. Now I don't even think. I'll just be like, yeah, cool, I'll come, whatever. And it's like, or just day-to-day tasks that I used to find like, oh, fuck, it's long doing that. Now it just isn't like that. So
it's important you replace it. Like I cherish my Sundays now. Like I love nothing more than waking up fresh Sunday. Go and get that expensive bike gear. Go and get that expensive running gear. If it makes you, give you that nudge to jump into that sport. I love it. Bought an expensive bike, jump on it on a Sunday, come back, we'll go for a walk. You start to cherish those moments. Yeah.
Another like little positive look on it is everyone will say, I see it in a lot in the questions, especially when we're out, like, oh, how do you stop that? Or everyone will like doing it. It's their thing of fun.
Yeah.
I used to love it. Like, properly love it.
Yeah, you did.
That's like 2 days of fun and pretty much 5 days fairly miserable and like low mood or down or whatever.
Yeah.
So now I still do get that. My Saturdays might not be as fun now, but I'm having like the other 6 days of the week enjoyable. So when you're thinking about it, it's like 5 and 2. I used to like not enjoy 5 days and love 2, and now I enjoy 5 days, realistically 7, but there's still sometimes you're a bit like, oh mate, I'd like to have 8 pints and enjoy it or whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't really go, but what's the word? Priorities just sort of flip a bit, and then you're enjoying. And like you say, when you said a minute ago, you have the money. Like I was probably doing now in London, well, anywhere, the pints are ridiculous price. You're doing 200-300 quid on a couple of nights out.
Yeah.
Now, even if you're just going pub for a bit, you're spending 50 quid. So you're spending a lot. So, you know, I now have got more money for things that I want, like running gear or clothes or whatever you're buying.
Yeah. You can most certainly still socialise. I mean, we landed here on Saturday, went out to Glitterbox on Sunday for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Had a little dance and come on. Then you're fresh for Monday.
So and not to say switch it with something else, but it might just be.
Of course.
It might just be that alcohol's your issue.
Yeah.
I'm not like doing much else, but I'm not like clean for everything.
Sure.
So, you know, there is still options to have a bit of fun. It's not like you're just finished.
Yeah.
You can definitely, if alcohol's your problem or your problematic area, you can stop drinking, and then like when I'm here, you can enjoy whatever.
Let your hair down a little bit. Yeah.
But it's all individual. People would be, that's dangerous for someone that's like an addict, because you can't really be out of your mind in that way. If you're not, and it's just very much, you know, I'm stopping something, then
absolutely
crack on.
And also 200 days for Josh. Well done.
Yeah, today.
The big 200. We can't celebrate.
If you're thinking of doing it, there'll be all these sort of things and all the podcasts saying it's great. It is hard. There's a transition period, I'd say, of about 3 months where, like, I used to drink. If I was angry at something, I'd be like, fuck it. Like, my release was have a beer. If I was celebrating something, so your body like feels all them triggers at first, and you're a bit like, oh, how do I do to get rid of it? Obviously, I was running quite a lot, so it was helping a lot. It was helping in that sense, but there is probably an adjustment period where you can feel a bit frustrated, or you'll be like, I remember getting to 3 months and thinking, everyone's saying this, I'm supposed to feel unreal, and I just don't. And then it just flipped. Around 100 days, I remember thinking to myself, I don't think I ever want to have a drink again, because I'd like passed all the social settings.
Yeah.
We went into that briefly, but like you'll have your first night out, you'll have your first, I had a stag, or I actually went to a wedding or a holiday, and rather than looking at them as like negatives, they were the building blocks. I went, to be totally honest, had a better time at them than when I was drinking. I'm fresh in the mornings, I'm still seeing all your mates, and then them things build a bit of sort of confidence and also positivity, and just being like, oh, I don't actually need to go back. So definitely.
I remember the switch for you around 100 days.
Yeah, it was around 100, and that's a bit of a known thing when you're reading, if you're doing any of the books or whatever, about 100 days they say.
To do the dopamine receptors as well?
I don't know about that. I don't know when that totally sort of flips, but obviously and it depends because you can be cheating dopamine with like sugar and different things.
Of course, yeah.
Watch out for the sugar as well.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a known thing with that. People sort of replace the dopamine. If you're an addict, don't really worry about it. Just get off the drink. But
it's the same as my mum when she stopped smoking. She banged on the food.
You look for something. So I remember like Feb. That was about actually worth saying. I was like getting a pack of biscuits from the shop on a weekend, doing the whole lot, and just thinking, this is fine because obviously I'm not drinking 10 pints tonight, so you're winning. But then I was like, I'm giving up and I'm not exactly feeling my best and I'm not going to look the best.
I think weather has the part to play in that. We were both doing it. It was shit weather in the UK. It was just like instant gratification and dopamine hit through food.
But just be careful if you do it not to like switch to something else straight away.
Yeah, very good point, very valid.
But I think that's about it.
Fantastic.
There's not many, and the other thing is coming from someone who like loved it. It would have been my worst nightmare giving up. It's like the best thing I've done.
Yeah, I know. If you'd have said to me on your birthday, by the way, I'm stopping alcohol, I'd have laughed. I'd have said,
yeah.
No,
Well, people did.
Yeah.
People would have thought, all right, you'll do it for 2 weeks. It's another one of one. Sometimes I have them moments, like I'm a bit erratic with things.
Sure.
Where I'll be like, oh fuck it, I'm going to do this, and it's quite a bold move.
Yeah.
But
is that also then used as fuel motivation when people say?
Bit. A little bit.
Because you're competitive.
I'm competitive with myself though, so like my competitive streak, which helps in this sort of thing, because you need your head on your own. Otherwise, you could sort of like just nip to the pub and have a few pints and not tell anyone.
Yeah.
But being competitive if it helps, especially that's why I think that saying when you're first starting, just saying I'm going to do a month to see. Or it doesn't have to be as big as that.
No.
A year was quite a big call. You can always just say, do you know what? I don't know why more people don't. Just do a month and see how you feel.
Yeah.
A month's enough to get out, your sleep's better, you've done 4 weekends where you've been out of your normal scenario.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth doing a month. And if you look at like some of my mates from this, a couple of them have, in their own right, decided obviously for them it might not be working either. I got a mate Tom and he stopped, didn't he?
Yeah.
He got to like 30 days and then because he'd done 30 he was like, oh fuck, I might as well try and see if I can do 50, and then ended up coming to the stag and not drinking. So sometimes it can, mine was a bit of like I thought I had to step in and I wanted it as a big like sudden thing, but some people might just fall into enjoying stopping. And
you never know, you doing it could be the motivation for other people in the group that are like internally wanted to do that themselves, but no one in the group has done it.
That's a good point. A lot of the people that sort of have a bit of a snappy attitude at you are normally the people it's holding up a mirror to, and they're a little bit bothered by it. So don't really worry about that. That will happen, and you'll just have to be a bit like, deep down they're probably going home thinking, fucking hell, maybe I need to do that.
Yeah.
Or they're just worried to lose a mate that they've got that does the same life as them. And in the early 20s stages or whatever, so many people have issues with like bad issues as well with coke or different drugs, like, and there's a million ways to stop that, but just alcohol pretty much removes all of it.
Of course it does.
I know there is people that are addicts in their own right with them other substances, but for the general population, alcohol is the gateway to doing all of that at the weekend. So you know, if you're one of those that's saying like, I need to lay off like the coke, or I need to lay off partying too much, look at the alcohol, because I've heard it before and people have lived it before, where you'd be like, oh no, that's it, I'm going to stop, and you can end up losing partners or losing because you're like saying I'm going to stop that and you're just not, because if you're getting pissed every week, it's not even your fault. It is at the stopping drinking stage, but once you've had a beer, you're not thinking straight, are you? So
very good. Hope you wanted to take a few pointers, ladies and gents. Any further questions? Because I don't think Josh is going to be starting again anytime soon. Any further questions? You can always do another one of these, but appreciate all your questions. Is it still recording? Yeah.
Yeah.
See you very soon. Thank you, good night. Much love.